And aloha, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the COVID-19 Care Conversation, a place where we try to get you answers by bringing leaders from our community. And today, Ryan, we've got a very special guest.
That's right. Good morning. I'm Ryan Kalei-Suji. We are going to be joined by Senate President Ron Kouchi in just a few moments. So for those of you who are tuning in here on the platform of the Honolulu Star Advertisers Facebook page, we encourage you to type in your questions for the senator. We will be speaking to him on a bunch of issues of how the Hawaii State Senate and the legislature is working to really help the state move forward amidst this COVID-19 pandemic. So we're excited to hear from them. We're excited to hear from all of you as well. So please continue to share this page as well as share this conversation that we're having. And of course, we want to thank our partners and our sponsors at the Hawaii Executive Collaborative for helping make this conversation possible.
Yeah, so we want to, as always, we start with the count, and we are seeing good numbers here. As of noon yesterday, 6 new cases for a total of 592 positives, 12 deaths. That remains unchanged since Monday. And the good news, 444 patients have recovered since the start of the outbreak. So we are really seeing that flattening that everybody wants.
Yeah, and the key is to continue to see those numbers stay low. I know state officials are continuing to keep a close eye on that. Also making other headlines today, some senators say there needs to be a plan for airlines to resume flying to Hawaii. Some international carriers may resume service to Hawaii as early as May 31st, prompting the Senate Special Committee on COVID-19 to express some concerns that the state government doesn't have a plan to really reopen travel because of the fact that there's a lot of issues that come with, of course, travelers coming back in. We've heard from many state officials who talked about the addition of more testing that is needed, as well as a series of other things that need to be implemented in order for us to really open the state back up for business, so to speak. So we'll learn more about some of the plans about that.
Yeah, the senators yesterday were asking the Department of Health officials as to what plan, if any, they have in place. And really, everyone is sort of taking this day by day, and there is no real protocol other than the 14-day quarantine. That 14-day quarantine, it's not clear how long that will be in place for visitors. And obviously, that's not really sustainable for the visitor industry. So if those flights start up again, will folks start coming back? And if they do, what measures should be taken? We've heard the governor and the lieutenant governor both talk about testing, possible quarantine hotels if the quarantine is still in place. So a lot of questions about that, but a lot of people do want to get back to work. So there is that real push-pull between the economy and public health.
And somebody who might know a little bit more, of course, about that, as well as a number of other issues, is Hawaii State Senate President Ron Kouchi from the island of Kauai, joining us here now on Facebook. Good morning, Senator. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time. We know you're very busy. First question right off the bat, what are some of the things that you folks are working on in the Hawaii State Senate? I know that you guys are really busy with all these committee hearings that you guys are having, but maybe if you can provide just a quick update on some of the efforts that's happening right now.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. Besides the committee, which is getting wide viewership, the neighbor island members are back in their district. So the Big Island members and the Maui members have had town hall meetings on the island of Kauai. Former Council Chair Mel Raposo and former Police Commission Chair Charlie Iona do a nightly 7 p.m. Zoom show for about an hour. So I've been on, that program with Mayor Kawakami, with Senator Dela Cruz, and by myself once. And they have a wider range of array of guests to talk about what's going on. They've had Lieutenant Governor Green, Dr. Miskovich. They had Senators Dela Cruz, Favela, and Kim from the COVID-19 committee. Tonight, I'll be on with Lance Segawa, the CEO of the 2 Kauai state-run hospitals, to give an update on the state hospital facilities on Kauai. I know Senator Kaeho Kalole does semi-regular 7 p.m. Facebook Live or Zoom chat. There was a Leeward Coast Zoom program with the House and Senate members on Monday. So we're learning about the technology tools that are available to us, reaching out. Others, whether they've been sewing masks or, going out and helping in food drives, seeing how we're feeding our students at the various schools. and all the while trying to be sure we're practicing the appropriate social distancing. But they've been incredibly engaged. And then obviously we've got tremendous email inquiries that are coming in or through Facebook Messenger. And then the biggest deal has been the inability for people to get their unemployment checks. And so we currently have 33 members of the Senate staff. I believe at least one of our members is in that group, as well as 22 members from the Legislative Reference Bureau, which the Speaker and I oversee. So we have close to 120 members of legislative staff, legislators that are there at the convention center trying to help process the backlog. And most people don't realize that for the load that unemployment dealt with, they had only 70 employees full-time before this happened. They immediately hired 11 additional employees, but we're now ramping up to where there'll be over 200 volunteers. So besides the computers, I think today they're working on standing up the call center. We hope that when people have better aptitude in doing the applications, we will move into 2 6-hour shifts next week so we can expand the hours that they'll be operating and give people a larger window with which to come through. So on Tuesday, before they were even fully ramped up, they processed 2,500 claims.
Well, that is good to hear. I know a lot of people have been very frustrated by that backlog. When we look at the amount of money that the state is going to be short, some of the projections say as much as $1.5 billion. We know that there's been some talk about cutting the salaries of state employees or even first responders by certain percentages. But even if that were to happen, and we'd love your thoughts on that, that still won't be enough to make up that shortfall. Where do you see the money coming from?
Well, first of all, the Speaker and I immediately wrote to the governor, let's get together and work at seeing what else can we do before we get to those, pay reductions. And, right now, I think the hope is on that stimulus 4, we may not get new money because Senator McConnell is very much against the states and counties getting additional help. But with the $867 million that the state is going to get, we're hopeful that they may relax some of the restrictions. Right now, a lot of the people were saying, well, why are you cutting salaries when you're getting all of this federal stimulus money? Well, the rules are very clear. We can't use that to cover any items that were budgeted before March 1st. So that money is not to use to plug a revenue hole. But we're hopeful that that would be what is going to happen. Senator Dela Cruz, the Ways and Means Chair, Representative Luke, the Finance Chair, are reviewing the budget. We have some hard choices to make. I think the solar tax credit is $70 million. But can we continue to afford that and then reduce, compensation or make cuts? During the Great Recession, they eliminated the whole vector control section. And most people don't realize there was a reduction of over 3,100 state jobs during that period in trying to deal with the revenue loss. One of the things we did do is raise taxes that was going to generate about $500 million in revenue. Raising taxes is really not an option because there's no economic activity going on. So it's really looking at other programs, freezing or eliminating the vacant positions and dealing with those before we get to people who are actually currently employed, or as we refer to in the budget speak, the warm bodies in the budget. Let's take out the vacancies first. And then there certainly are going to be new jobs like contact tracing in the Department of Health. How much longer is unemployed insurance going to need assistance? And DLNR and the Department of Ag need people in the field to work on cleaning trails and doing I guess, maintenance work for irrigation trails. And so there may be now jobs that the COVID-19 budget or the CARES money can pick up that would relieve some of the pressure on our budget. But there's some tools available to us.
We know a large income or not large, of course, revenue driver is the TAT, the money that the state gets from that, and just from the hospitality industry in general with tourism. When do you foresee and how do you foresee Hawaii coming out of this and opening up for tourism once again to help jumpstart the economy and help generate more revenue?
Well, until robust testing kits are available, I don't see an ability for us to safely open up the state for tourists. I think if the airlines care about not just the passengers they fly, but their employees, that they would test at the point of getting on a plane and ensure that everybody getting on a plane is negative before they even send them anywhere. I'm old enough to have run through the airport in Lehui 10 minutes before my flight and get on board. I never imagined I'd have to go through a metal detector, that I couldn't take the Hawaiian salt unless each bag was pinched with the liquid, that I couldn't bring fresh poi or guava jelly. But all of those things have to go through the x-ray machine, and there are prohibited items or items that are automatically tested. And TSA has become a whole industry that never existed before 9/11 in 2001. So I believe this testing is going to be part of it. If they're not doing it at the point of getting on the plane, then we need to be able to administer these tests when they arrive. Until then, we need to do a lot better job of enforcing the 14-day quarantine than we have been doing so far. And just with the incident yesterday or over the last few days, it is clear that people are still going to be coming here and not adhering to the policy. Chris Tatum appeared before the COVID-19 committee last week. He talked about a much more robust protocol. He's scheduled to appear again tomorrow, and they're going to talk about it in greater detail. I think, putting bans on people, red for tourists, blue for resident, and, getting them to the hotels, better identifying where they're at, requiring the 3 phone calls a day, having people in place. But I don't know if it's legal, but what the committee has talked about is the potential of just when you get in, you get on a bus and you're taken directly to wherever it is, a hotel, the University of Hawaii dorms. You do the 14-day quarantine where we are aware of nobody should be leaving the property there. And once you complete it, then you should leave. Now, if that sounds draconian, it is intended to, because the message I think we need to send clearly is, we love you, but we're not ready yet. And I want to be clear to Mayor Caldwell. Kauai does not appreciate being identified as a potential test case to go bring in the tourists so that you can make better decisions on Oahu. I was stunned when I heard him make the comment last night. The people of Kauai do not appreciate being characterized that way. And Mayor Kawakami has gone through extraordinary lengths, way beyond any other mayor or the governor, in locking down the island of Kauai. And they have gotten the results that they have by great personal sacrifice, by staying at home, by living with a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. And then to tell us, because we've done such a good job, we should be first. I totally disagree with that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because the mayor has extended, Mayor Caldwell has extended the stay-at-home order for the city and county of Honolulu till the end of May. Do you anticipate the rest of the state doing that? Should that come from the governor's office, or is that a county-by-county decision?
The governor will have an overarching policy, and then each mayor will then put policies into place if they need to be stricter, based on each individual county's situation. But at this point, if you listen carefully to what Mayor Caldwell said, he's extending the stay-at-home policy till May 31st, but they are going to start looking at what they're reopening. I think that that's part of the stronger message to tell the tourists, no matter what you see on the national news, we're not ready on May 1st to start taking visitors in. I believe by May 4th, Mayor Kawakami has identified May 3rd, which is a Sunday, May 4th is a Monday, that we may start to see certain businesses with the correct direction start to open some other retail activities, perhaps restaurants, and whether it's at 25% capacity, 50% capacity, you need to take chairs out. If you open retail, you're going to say that what I believe you need to have, like in the supermarkets now, the tape on the floors to show where you should stay in line. I've gone to Fukuya to support them. They have a sign on the door that says only 3 customers can be in at a time. At Nico's, there's the line outside on the sidewalk. So, but it's going to be important for us as government as we start to reopen to give real clear protocols and guidelines about how to appropriately do that to ensure the safety of our residents who are, starting to come out more often, and the people who are working on those front lines. And I made a comment to Mealani Richardson the other day and said, kind of what do you envision? And I talked about, the ability to get a haircut and not having had a haircut. And, I just want to be clear. I thought it was funny, and it's not. Everybody is worried about performing their job in a safe way, including people who, give haircuts. And whether that means in the new world that there's a plexiglass and you kind of work around it, that anybody who wants to get that haircut, you have to wear that mask, or what that protocol is. No business should be reopened until we can give clear direction about what it is we should be doing and how is it safe for the consumer and how is it safe for the employees.
Obviously, Hawaii is not the only state that has to deal with the decision making of letting tourists come in. I mean, you look at other cities and states, New York, Las Vegas, the mayor coming under heat as well for her comments that she made publicly yesterday about trying to reopen Las Vegas. But other cities and states throughout the country talking about how they want to open up their city. So has there been any conversation that you're aware of, maybe with other states, and how maybe they're managing this? And is there anything, I know that we're separate because obviously we're an island state, but is there anything where it could be more of a national discussion of how we promote this interstate and opening up sort of this travel for commerce in general?
Well, the governor is on a call every day with all of the governors nationally. So Governor Ige is in touch with what is working and what isn't working in his discussion with his fellow colleagues. Clearly by our separation and Alaska, by their separation, we're in very different circumstances. If you notice, there is that coalition of about 7 eastern states that they're all going to work in concert because they realize with proximity of borders that the action of one affects the other. The western states have created a coalition, and we are clearly going to have the opportunity to see what happens in Georgia, where they're talking about opening the state up on Saturday, and some of the other areas. We've already seen what happened in Hong Kong, in Singapore, which were all held up as great models. And as soon as they started taking visitors in, then the virus immediately came back and started spreading. And in the case of Singapore, which is held up as one of the best, it was really the return of migrant workers that was responsible for the spread. And that's why I think that while it sounds drastic in the implementation of the 14-day quarantine, until we have that more robust testing capability available, it's going to be hard to take in tourists. But we're going to be desirable because we've had such a low rate of infection here. And while our heart goes out to any lost life, with only 12 deaths due to COVID-19 here in Hawaii, we are viewed as a low low rate, and we would have an exotic appeal about our beaches, the sunshine, and the quality of our destination. But I don't think we're ready for that now. I think the opening should be primarily for the local residents to start to be able to move a little freer, and other businesses start to be able to open up and get some of the money circulating in our community, all with clear guidance from us. So there are committees that are meeting right now, and we are working for early May to have clear guidance. I think Mayor Kawakami had some good guidance in his strict policies that, stores of this many square feet, this is the capacity that you could allow in at one time. And, as your size grows, the number changes, but you need to have, I think, some very specific guidelines for everybody out there.
I hear what you're saying about retail and other vendors, and that is definitely possible there. One area that it's not possible, of course, is schools. Do you anticipate schools being able to open, if not in the summer, then in the fall? It's very hard, as a parent, when I think about it, how do we get social distancing for kids? Or do you think that we're going to still be in this Zoom online, distance learning model for some time to come?
Well, we'll be in for some time to come because the DOE has already announced that there will be no more classes this year, this school year. And they also have already announced that summer school will be online. So the schools will not be open. The speaker and I sent a letter with all of the members of the legislature adding their names to USDA, asking them to please continue the feeding program because students aren't going to be going into the classes. But we are feeding a tremendous amount of students right now. Well over 30,000 are getting meals every day through the program. And then we'll see with the testing that's in place if we'll be able to open schools at the end of July or not. If not, we do have time to work on making sure our online learning is much better. We were able to get through 3/4 of the school year with our normal teaching methods and missed the fourth quarter, but to start missing too much, I would be very concerned about our students falling behind if we don't have a very robust, uniform online policy.
I want to bring in a comment that was made by one of your colleagues, Senator Gil Keith Agaran, saying neighbor island legislators have asked the Department of Labor to consider standing up dedicated lines for claims from Maui, Lanai, Molokai, Kauai, and Hawaii Island. There are state employees who could volunteer from our islands as well. Do you think that that's something that should be considered by the department, is to create a dedicated line for these unemployment claims for the neighbor islands?
Well, I'll have two questions for Director Murakami. When I'm done with this program, I'm going to be heading down to the convention center. I believe the COVID-19 committee's meeting with Director Murakami. Rather than him calling into the Capitol, he thought it would be a little more productive if they could see what they're doing. So I'll certainly ask that question. But right now, the call center is taking all calls statewide. The second question I was asked yesterday from somebody on Kauai, I did tell them that to the best of their ability, but it's not going to be 100%. They are trying to process the claims from the earliest request back in March and trying to work their way through. And the question was, is it possible for them to say we've completed through March 15th? We've completed through March 20th. And if they haven't heard something, then maybe there's one that has fell through the cracks and they can see how the progress is being made. Again, with the 2,500 they processed on Tuesday before we're fully ramped up, I'm hoping they'll get to about 5,000 or 6,000 a day. And, that will really help move this process faster. But, instead of Senator Keith Agaran sending me a text on my phone personally to go get that, he's making sure I'm held and accountable to check on the question.
Using technology.
I just wonder overall, the city and county of Honolulu has invested $2 million for those 10,000 test kits that are going to be going through community health centers. Are you satisfied with the level of testing statewide, and is there something on the state level that can be done to bring in more tests?
Well, I've always believed from the beginning, from everything I was watching on, the national news, that the most robust testing protocols we could have, the better information we'd have, and the better we would know what we're dealing with. But it was very clear at the beginning because CDC decided to develop their own tests and not take the World Health Organization tests that we were far behind. The first kits that were sent to us didn't work, and we had limitations. The other thing that was very clear when the mayor announced his testing program, he secured them from South Korea. So they're not CDC approved, FDA approved, but they happen to be the tests that everyone else in the world is using except the United States. So if South Korea and Taiwan and Singapore and Germany have had robust testing protocols in place that have been effective, I think that the tests he secured are going to be, sufficient or will work out for our needs as far as what's going on.
We're going to do something a little different. Every day on our show, of course, we'd like to highlight a special group or an organization that is really helping to give back to the community. And our Hawaii hero of the day is the Waihata Company. And Senator, you know firsthand about the work that they're doing in your community. If you want to share a little bit about some of the efforts that they're making to help the community right now as we take a look at some of the photos from them.
Yeah, Waihata had been supplying food to the Independent Food Bank of Kauai and the Hawaii Food Bank, and they're both in Lehui. So last Saturday, they decided to take one truckload out to Kilauea and one to Kekaha and reach out to the communities at the far end of the Garden Island. And in the west side, they worked with Eola, which is a nonprofit organization in Kekaha. They've gotten support from Hawaii Community Foundation, from the County of Kauai. They've engaged local fishermen. So they've distributed over the last several weeks over 3,000 pounds of fish. Fish has gone out to the North Shore as well. And they've serviced, getting close now to 5,000 meals to families. On the west side, I haven't seen the numbers from Yoshi or Malama Kauai as to what their penetration has been on the North Shore, but I know that they are the groups that are active in providing food for them. So we're very grateful for, the community volunteers, the nonprofit groups, and Waihata and everything they've been doing.
Yeah, and what's amazing about that is we saw the picture of that the fish exchange there. We've heard so much about the farmers, but it's also the fishermen who are out of work right now. And so this is wonderful to give them an opportunity to help their community and also to make a little money, because we know that, with restaurants, a lot of business has shuttered and also the hotels are gone. So that is so great to see the fishermen also benefiting from that kind of an exchange.
And the fish is healthy for you to eat, and you're not relying solely on canned goods. So, besides helping the fishermen, it's good for the people who are eating the meals.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for taking the time. We know that you're busy and you're off to the convention center now as well to check up on those efforts. So we want to thank you and really say how much we appreciate you spending time to be here. We'd love to have you back on in the next few weeks to get another update, and look forward to talking to you again in the future.
No, thank you very much. And as long as Linnell tells me when I've got to show up, she's very good at organizing everybody and making it all happen. So my thanks to her as well.
All right. Thank you,
Thank
Senator.
you so much. Okay, well, great to hear him on. Interesting just to hear about all the different, when you think about lawmakers and all the different facets of the community that they serve and all of the different things that they're trying to figure out, from when he was saying at the beginning, down to sewing masks all the way up to volunteering at the convention center, and then obviously trying to figure out how on earth they balance the budget.
Yeah, and so interesting conversation with him on his ideas and his thoughts on how the state should reopen. Also talking a little bit directly about some of the comments that Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell made yesterday about Kauai being a testing ground. So if you miss any part of this conversation with the Senate President, we encourage you to go on back after the show's done and rewatch the interview. There's a lot of great discussion happening there. We want to talk about a few other headlines before we sign off, because we normally like to just kind of keep you also up to date with things that are happening here in the community.
Yeah, so Honolulu Mayor Kirk Caldwell had an in-depth interview with Gordon Pang yesterday of the Star Advertiser. We encourage you to go read Gordon's article. It's very interesting. He's explaining the shutdown, the extension of the shutdown, addressing some of the concerns and talking about where the flexibility actually is. So explaining his thought process as to which businesses could reopen. He's talking about things like car dealerships, real estate companies, possibly golf courses as well. Just sort of explaining the protocols of how that will actually work. That's very interesting. And then something that caught our eye was the University of Hawaii football opener now in doubt.
That's right. I think it's a question that a lot of schools and conferences throughout the country are trying to deal with, as there's so much uncertainty. A lot goes into planning these athletic seasons, oftentimes years in advance. And so there's a lot of doubt as to whether collegiate football is going to be possible coming up as early as fall. Of course, most of the games start in August, and some of the athletic departments are now questioning, especially here at the University of Hawaii, if that first game at Arizona is even going to be possible, because of the fact that Hawaii would, one, have to travel. If there's a 14-day quarantine that's still in effect, so when Hawaii players come back to the islands and any opposing team coming into Hawaii, what is sort of the protocol for these players and coaches that are coming back and forth and traveling to kind of continue on in this athletic competition, so to speak. So there's a lot of question marks still. The NCAA is actually also meeting. There is also talk that the NCAA could actually lift some of the requirements to some of the schools on the number of programs that they have. And so there is a threat of losing potentially up to 7 different collegiate sports that are currently being funded through these college campuses. Decision will be made, I think, next week as the committees get together to discuss how they manage just the loss of revenue and supporting all these scholarships for these athletes, and if the season can continue. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this crisis is that the ripple effect is so large. You know, obviously, we're very focused on this show about the health issues and the economic issues, but thinking about all those student athletes and all the work that they've done, and then to, you know, potentially lose a scholarship or potentially lose the ability to play is really, it's going to be tough for a lot of them.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Of course, the NCAA also saying that they would have granted some of the winter sports their eligibility back. So a lot of question marks there. We'll see what happens, and we'll continue to keep you posted. And we know there's a lot of people looking forward to this next chapter of the UH football team. We'll see if that chapter has to wait just a little longer.
Yeah, the other thing, oh yeah, the quarantine couple, Senator Kouchi made reference to them, those violators. It was a couple that the woman apparently had been documenting some of their adventures on Instagram, and apparently they were actually hotel hopping. So they went to one hotel, checked out, went to another hotel, checked out, and then there was actually a bulletin put out to try to find these folks. They were picked up, and they were taken to the airport, and now they are on their way out of here. If not, I think they actually flew out already.
Yeah, that's right. So again, showing how the state is, and really it's the effort of the community. A lot of people who have followed this couple to arrive on social media. So those are some of the things that we have seen the community really taking claim and making sure that they kind of, people want to protect their island, and they're being very vocal about those who are in violation of the 14-day quarantine. We also want to highlight something else that's happening amidst all of this. Of course, it's 2020 and the census is here. And so we wanted to sort of promote and encourage people to really get involved in the census.
Yeah, your response to the census helps direct billions of dollars in federal funding to the state of Hawaii. It's very important that you complete this. Now more than ever, we see how important it is to be counted, because the federal government is deciding which resources go where, and a lot of that is based on population. So if you've gotten a census form, make sure you fill it out and return it. If you haven't gotten one for whatever reason, or maybe you misplaced it, you lost it, whatever, go to 2020census.gov, fill it out. It takes about 10 minutes, super easy. Make sure you do it at that .gov website so that you are actually responding to the census website itself and not any kind of fraudulent website. The census questionnaire is secure, it's confidential, and it is so important to do because now more than ever, we need to be counted, Ryan.
That's right. So, we're going to, of course, see more of these campaigns happening, and really just the effort to get out there, participate in the census. No better time to do it when you're stuck at home. If you have a few minutes, it's really quick, it's really easy. Why not do it now? We are looking forward to our conversation tomorrow. Derek Kawakami, the mayor of Kauai, will be here to sort of address some of the questions and some of the things that are happening on his island and the efforts that are being made to protect Kauai County. And then next week, we will have Governor Ige back here on Monday. And Scott Murakami, he's becoming a very popular figure here in our state with director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations to take on more unemployment questions. We actually have broken up some of the portions of our interview with Director Murakami. So if you head on over to coronavirushawaii.com or our Instagram page, we've sort of broken up each question because there's been so much questions about unemployment. Encourage you to head on over there. It's also posted on YouTube where you can find more information about that as well. So looking forward to yet another conversation again tomorrow with the Kauai mayor.
Yeah, that's right. Until then, please stay safe, wear a mask if you head out, practice that social distancing, and stay strong during this process. We appreciate you. We appreciate the Hawaii Executive Collaborative. And until tomorrow, we wish you a fond aloha.
Aloha. We'll see you tomorrow.